When Sarah told me she was pregnant, I truly believed it was the happiest moment of my life. We had been married for 4 years. Those years had begun with laughter, dreams, and hopes for the future. But over time, they had quietly turned into silent dinners, late evenings at her office, and an emptiness I could never understand. Even then, I believed we could make things right. I believed in us. When she shared the news, I remember holding her hand so tightly that it trembled in mine. Tears filled my eyes as I softly whispered, "We're going to be parents." She smiled, yet something about that smile never reached her eyes. It looked rehearsed, as though she was making herself appear happy. I pushed aside the uneasy feeling growing inside my chest, telling myself it was only my imagination. As the months went by, her belly continued to grow, but the space between us grew even more. She became distant and secretive, protecting her phone, changing passwords, and taking long calls behind closed doors. Every time I questioned her, she became defensive, blaming hormones or the pressure of work. I wanted to trust her. More than anything, I needed to trust her. But one night destroyed everything I believed. She was sleeping beside me when her phone suddenly lit up on the bedside table. A message preview immediately caught my attention. "Can't wait to meet our baby." My hands turned ice cold. My heartbeat pounded loudly in my ears. I unlocked her phone and scrolled through the messages, hoping, praying that there had to be some terrible misunderstanding. Instead, I found the truth. There were dozens of messages from a man named Jason. Loving words, pictures, future plans, heartfelt promises. He wasn't simply an affair. He was the father of the baby I had believed was my own. The following morning, I confronted her. She broke down immediately, crying, apologizing, and saying it had just happened. She insisted she still loved me and that Jason no longer meant anything to her. But her words barely reached my heart. My entire world had already fallen apart. I walked out of the house without any destination, drove until the roads became completely empty, and finally stopped at the lake where we used to spend time when we were young, carefree, and happy. I sat there through the entire night feeling completely numb, watching the moon's reflection shimmer across the still water. By the time the sun came up, I already knew the truth. I couldn't do it. I couldn't raise another man's child, not after suffering a betrayal this deep. When she gave birth, I wasn't there. I simply couldn't be. I'd already resigned from my job, sold my car, and vanished. There was no goodbye, no forwarding address, only silence. I moved to the other side of the country, started using a new name, and found work at a mechanic shop in a quiet coastal town. The ocean became the only companion I had left. Every time I heard the cry of a baby, it cut through my heart like a sharp blade, but time did what it always does. It slowly softened the pain. Little by little, I learned how to live again. I found peace in my daily routine, in calm mornings, and in long walks along the shoreline. I never dated anyone. I never spoke about my past. The people in town only knew me as Ryan, the quiet mechanic who loved the sea. 5 years passed like that. Peaceful, lonely, but still peaceful. Then, on one rainy evening, my past came knocking at my door. I just closed the shop when I saw her standing outside in the pouring rain, her hair soaked, her face pale, and an umbrella clutched tightly in her hands. For a brief moment, I thought my eyes were deceiving me. "Ryan," she whispered softly, her voice trembling. Hearing my real name again after so many years felt like an old wound had been torn open again. "How did you find me?" I asked. She paused for a moment, her tired eyes filled with exhaustion. "I never stopped searching for you." I didn't ask her to come inside, but she continued speaking. Through her tears, she told me everything. Jason had abandoned her 2 years after the baby was born, leaving her for another woman. She had raised the little boy on her own, carrying the weight of shame and endless struggles. Not long ago, she had finally told her son about me, about the man who had loved him before discovering the painful truth. Then she spoke the words that shattered me all over again. "He's been asking about you," she whispered. "He believes you're his father." I couldn't find the words to respond. I simply stood there, staring at her. This was the woman I had once loved more than my own life, now standing before me, soaked by the rain, trembling, and forever haunted by the consequences of her own choices. Part of me wanted to scream, to demand why she had come back after all these years. Yet another part, buried deep inside, couldn't ignore the familiar ache, the lingering pain of love, heartbreak, and everything that might have been. "Why are you here, Sarah?" I finally asked. She took a slow step toward me, tears blending with the falling rain. "Because I can't undo what I did. But he deserves the chance to meet the man who loved him before he was even born." The rain fell even harder, its steady rhythm filling the silence that stood between us. My thoughts raced. I wasn't sure if I could bear seeing the little boy. I wasn't sure if I could bear staying away from him either. After a long silence, I quietly said, "Tell him. Tell him I said hello." She broke down even more, softly whispering, "When he smiles, he looks just like you." Maybe she said it to comfort me. Maybe it was the truth. I never asked. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to cry as well. Not because of the pain, but because I was finally letting it all go. That night, after she walked away, I found an old picture of us hidden inside a drawer. I looked at it for a long time and realized something I had never understood before. Walking away had helped me heal. But facing her, and facing everything we had been through, had finally set me free. I didn't know if I would ever meet that little boy, but for the first time I wasn't afraid of whatever came next. I was no longer the shattered man sitting beside the lake. I'd become someone new, someone finally ready to live.